Lea mi hea tona kia koutou e hakaloko mai ana ki te tehana o Ngāti Hine ko hau tēnei ko Leni Bristowe e kai pau atu kia koutou i runga tā tātou tehana. E kone ke wangi ia tātou ko tēnei o tātou kai apina te tātou tupuna pare a tau hena nei ko Delamaine Armstrong e Delamaine tēnā koe.
Tēnā koe, Len.
Delamaine, the reason why I run you, Delamaine, we'll do this in England, and the reason why I wanted to have an interview with you because you were the major person that set up a process for tangihanga at our marae and you presented it to the families. Can you give us, because a lot of people are curious to know how we operated and how that went, because it's a learning thing for other maraes and people were interested in the karere and all of those people were interested in how we actually did it. So can you go through it with us and tell us how the idea come about?
Kia ora, Len. You're quite right. Lots of people have been interested, but of course the real impetus for us was when our cousin passed early last week, and of course we'd just come out of COVID level 3, and so we had to quickly move to organise ourselves to make contact with the whānau and just check what they wanted to do. Were they planning on staying at their kāinga and keeping the tūpapaku there, or would they like to come to the marae? And of course, you'd already invited them down to the marae if they wanted to go. So after speaking with them and finding that they'd like to use the marae because it was getting a bit too much for them to handle at the kāinga, then all we did was go through the COVID guidelines for the time. We had a look, and of course those guidelines have changed each week with each level. And we knew that the guidelines for the marae, for example, had only just been released, and they had set the number at 50 people at the marae, and in bubbles of 10, for example. So that was the foundation guiding us. Our first thing was to always stay within the guidelines of the government as much as we could do that. So we just made arrangements with the whānau, spoke with them about how were we going to keep the whānau pani safe and keep our manuhiri safe. So we made a decision then that manuhiri would not come up to and make any contact with the whānau pani or the tūpapaku. And of course that's quite a radical change in our normal practice, Len.
Yeah.
But after speaking with yourself as the chair of the marae and with our paipai with Wasi, we were able to agree that was the appropriate thing to do. Yeah. And so in setting up the marae, we set it up such that it actually stopped manuhiri from coming, and there was nowhere to sit except one bench that would have 10 people that could sit on it. The rest of the seats were all turned around so that you actually couldn't have other people coming in. We even we had decided that once we had our kaupapa locked in, that at the gate when people came in, we had whānau at the gate who were meeting our manuhiri, bringing them in one bubble at a time. We had a track and tracing register set up at the gate at the Waharoa, and that was the opportunity. We also had to tell manuhiri how the kaupapa was going to work and how we were going to maintain our practices while also maintaining the COVID restrictions and the social distancing, So yeah. It was important that we had somebody at the front to actually tell manuhiri as they arrived and to be able to manage the number of people moving. So no more than a bubble of 10 would arrive at the Waharoa, and then they couldn't move into the whare until any previous group before them had already completed mihi and they're paying their respects, and then moved from the wharenui. Once they moved from there, then the next group could go. So that was our plan from the beginning, and we had spoken with whānau about it. We'd spoken with our paipai about it, and we had the support of the whānau pani to be able to do that. So we rolled that out. But the most important thing was that when Manuhiri came to the marae, was that they understood that they were responsible for their social distancing and their own safety. And it gets really hard, It gets really hard when you go to the marae. We've been locked up for like 7 weeks, and all of a sudden you see people that we haven't seen for that long, and of course you want to hug them, you want to kiss them. And in many instances, I know personally, I was like, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to look after ourselves, and we're going to make sure that we don't have that kind of physical contact, and we maintain our social distancing. And so that's what we were able to do. I think the other thing was, because the whānau pani had one night at the marae, and they worked out quite well with that plan. And we made sure that the wharekai was only catering to the whānau pani to sit down, and that any manuhiri, there was constant hot water and hot drinks and that outside the wharekai. We'd made arrangements for that kai to be portable, and that they were able to come and pick up a snack box, and they were able to leave. So we were still able to practice our manaaki for our manuhiri, albeit somewhat differently in a lunchbox. But the last day was a real challenge, if you remember. It was a big challenge, because a lot of people turned up, and we were fortunate because we had good weather. We were fortunate that the leadership on the pai made the decision to go outside, out on the lawn, where there was more room for whānau to be able to keep a safe distance,
Yeah.
And so that was what was happening. That was what happened. Initially, I had suggested, because we had an event a couple of weeks earlier where we had a burial at the wahitapu, and it didn't quite go the way that we had hoped it would go. And so as a consequence of that, we came back and suggested to our kaumātua that perhaps at the wahitapu we only let the whānau pani in, and everybody else stay outside the fence. But in the time and that couple of days that we were at the marae and then up to the wahitapu, then Wasi made an assessment of the people who were there. The messages had been very clear, and he made a change of the plan and said, look, if everybody can maintain their social distances and look after themselves, we'll all be able to go into the wahitapu. And everybody did. Everybody did go in, and we were able to do what we needed to do up there. And everybody was able to spread out in the wahitapu and keep a safe distance. So we had some guidelines that we adhered to, but we also had the flexibility for ourselves to decide how we were going to manage that. And I think at the end of the day, it actually it panned out okay.
Yeah, no, Delamaine, I mean, that's something totally different for all of us. As I was sitting on the taumata with Wasi, and seeing some of the people that come in to the tangi, and really heartbroken about the changes. And being on the taumata, it was hard to watch that, and Wasi and I had to find a way to ease their feelings in regards to the changes in tikanga on the marae, and Wasi was, you know what Wasi is like. He's good at explaining things like that, and he took a lot of pressure of people feeling that they were locked out of something that they've always been used to, over the years. And the simple message that Wasi sent out is, he said, if we don't do this, and this was all in Te Reo Māori, if we don't do this and someone gets sick here, you're going to come back here and blame the people that are sitting on the taumata and this marae. So this is only a temporary measure. It's a precautionary measure for all of us. We don't like this. We don't want this at all. But it's something that we need to be aware of. Ki te tiaki a tātou, koe tera ko te take, I haka māma ke te ngako o ngā tangata, petahi o ngā whānu, I haere mai, ka kite I te rereketanga o te haka haere o te hui, ngari te pai o wasi ki te haka Maara matu kia lato, koe tēnei ko te take, mahi nei matu, a tātou I tēnei wenei kaupapa, he pai ngā mama tātou katoa. Delamaine, I think it went really well. It's a good experience for all maraes to have a look at where they can improve things in regards to watching what we've done and heard what we've done on our marae. And
the reality, isn't it, Lee? The reality is that these things are going to continue to happen. And we've been locked out of the marae for the last 7 or so weeks, and it was time for us to be able to reclaim our marae, reclaim our tikanga, but be able to also adapt with what the current situation is and be able to maintain our practice as safely as we can. And I guess one of the key things about that, Len, uppermost in some of our minds was 1918 with the Spanish flu. And the role that Pipiwai had in that history. So it's been important for us to learn from those lessons, to learn that if we don't look after ourselves and look after our whānau, is that there can be fatal consequences with the hundreds of people who died in 1918 as a consequence of a similar situation where people died from the Spanish flu. And there was no vaccine then for that, and our whānau, of course, had very low immunity against those things. So we're again in a similar situation, but we've learned from that and there are guidelines to be able to keep us safe, and that's exactly what we tried to do. And I agree with you. I think in the scheme of things, we did all right. We learned. I'm grateful that the whānau pani allowed us to learn and test the process and feel confident that were it to happen again, we would be more prepared for it again.